Morning. We're here with Professor Jane Greenberg here in the School of Information and Library Science at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Welcome, Jane.
Good morning.
So let's start by tell us a little bit about the various roles you play here at UNC.
Well, I teach in the area of organizing information. I teach and in the area of metadata. So the courses I teach generally have both LS and IS students, and I like that. I like the intermixing of them. And my research area, I mean, people usually associate the term metadata with me, but the research I do is in the area of metadata generation, classification, looking at classification problems, and there's this buzzword that people keep talking about, semantic web, and so I'm interested in a lot of how traditional cataloging, organizing information approaches apply to some of the visions and ideas underlying the semantic web.
So I know that you're well known in the national and international communities for various metadata standards, and you've worked with the Dublin Core group as well as others. Tell us a little bit about this concept of metadata and why it's so important in today's world.
Well, let me just talk a little bit about Dublin Core, and then I think that would be a good place to branch out with about metadata. So I've been active in the Dublin Core Metadata Initiative since, 1999, 2000. And, well, you know, the Dublin Core Metadata is this low-level standard. My interest there is in metadata tools to help people create metadata easily and efficiently. So why is metadata important? Well, it's indexing, it's cataloging, and we have more and more information available. Metadata is usually associated with digital information. We have more and more information available on the web, and metadata helps with retrieval effectiveness, information management, information security, information administration, and standards are needed in place.
So how does this sort of come together with the social tagging that's going on? I mean, some people would just say, "Oh, just let everyone do this on their own," and as opposed to people who actually have content expertise or indexing experience. I mean,
well, you know, I don't think they're that different. I look at it as there's a continuum out there, and there are very rigid, highly structured metadata standards. One example is the Federal Geographic Documentation Committee standard for digital geospatial material, and that has over 200 metadata elements, you know, down to the coordinates and so forth. At the Dublin Core, I said, you know, it's 15 elements, it's low level. You could even go lower level to just the idea of keyword tagging that people do on web pages, and to these random tags, or they're not really random. People do put thought into what they're doing when they're tagging their photographs on Flickrs, or they're tagging websites on Delicious. And so the way that I approach metadata is it doesn't have to be some certified, registered standard. To me, it's kind of all metadata, and there's this continuum out there where different people are practicing and generating metadata, or where through machine processing, different algorithms in systems, different profiles that have been stored, you know, metadata is being generated all the time automatically. And you go to your bank, you know, the automatic teller machine, and you're doing some kind of transaction. There's some metadata that's being generated there to document that experience.
Right. So there's a lot of work in automatically generated metadata. I know you've looked at this in some of your own work. And how, I mean, do you have hope that we're going to be able to automatically generate, high quality sort of topical metadata, or is it really just the sort of the technical kinds of metadata that machines do well?
Oh, I think that it's happening. I think there are yes, it's sort of easy with some of the technical metadata. I mean, nobody should be typing in the format of a document when it can automatically be read and be read correctly. I even think it's ridiculous. You have people typing over URLs when it can really be, or an identifier when it can be extracted. But within, it really relates back to subject indexing, automatic indexing, and so within certain disciplines there are algorithms. It works generally better for scientific disciplines where there's less term ambiguity. Those kinds of algorithms can be integrated into metadata tools and can be used to sort of scan document content and assign subject terms. So I think that it's not an either or. That we should look to these algorithms and test them and figure out where they fit in different disciplines, and at least let these automatic indexing algorithms look at document content and suggest terms, or see if these terms match a discipline ontology, and then use the human to perhaps say yes or no, or a content creator or a professional. So I am very hopeful of that, and I think you see more and more of it. I think of Liz Liddy has done some really interesting work with the Natural Language Processing Group and educational documents for the National Science Digital Library. Eric Duval, another person, I forget the name of the institution, he's in Belgium, computer scientist, same discipline. And so people are doing it. So.
Well, that's good to hear, because certainly, especially this sort of kind of hybrid or combined approach in which the machine is actually serving as kind of an assistant and takes care of a lot of the kind of sort of obvious stuff, but then maybe makes suggestions that the human can actually then make the final decision about. I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, it seems. Why not take advantage of machine processing to the, I guess my little soapbox is, let's use the automatic processing as much as possible and save the human skill for the things you truly need the human skill for. And so that's where, I guess, some of my research has been directed, with trying to answer that question. And it's going to be probably different. I mean, it is going to be different in different environments, depending on what tools are available.
So how does this then sort of lead to the semantic web kind of concept that Tim Berners-Lee and others have been promoting? Well,
the idea of the semantic web is all based on this idea of semantic linking, and you need tagging, you need some form of standardization. Eric Miller writes that it doesn't have to be perfect. Some things are going to be dropped. That's okay. But some kind of standardization, some kind of tagging is better than no tagging. I think about the semantic web, and I don't know if we'll ever have this fully entire World Wide Web semantic web, but that's okay. What has happened is that the semantic web community really appreciates the idea of information standards, and they use the word ontology, we use the word controlled vocabulary, thesaurus. Again, it's a continuum that's out there, and so that's where the I want to say the link is.
So, give me kind of an example of how the semantic web would be helpful to the average person. I mean, they have some sort of information need, and rather than just going to their favorite search engine and typing in 2 or 3 words.
Well, there is one project that might be worth looking at. It's a project called Music Brains, and it has semantic web standards underneath it all, so things like the web ontology language, and it's using a music vocabulary underneath it all. So anybody interested, it's open source, anybody interested in any kind of music or learning about music and wanting to identify the music they have, where it fits in sort of the world or map of music, can go to this and learn, and actually it's very open and contributor oriented. So it's bringing together a community. There's that famous Scientific American article. I don't know if you've ever read it, the one with sort of the 1,000-foot or whatever it is, 4,000-foot mountain view, where the semantic web will turn off your radio, scheduling your personal information manager, and that kind of thing. I don't really see that happening yet. I mean, maybe it will. This is for the computer science people to take care of. But a semantic web, there are, Eva Mendes likes to say, little semantic web islands out there, and I like to say little semantic webs. So there are little projects out there, or I want to say more than little projects, where they're using semantic web standards and infrastructure to allow for better functionality than we have had in the past with these digital projects. Music Brains is one project. There's an environmental science project that comes out of the UK. I can't think of the name right now. Same kind of project where you're trying to actually locate services to help with water purification or composting or these other kinds of activities. So identifying a service.
Right. So I mean, it sounds like in some sense the semantic web of today is dependent upon a lot of people being connected and sort of adding value to what the kind of the infrastructure is there, and what the semantic web community is doing is building better infrastructure to connect people. So the one extreme would be that it's all just automatic, but that's probably kind of not where we actually maybe want it to go. But that we have these support tools.
Well, it's interesting. I think about this sometimes in the context of it has come from the computer science community more that sort of have taken up with it, and so the idea is that computer scientists want to automate and librarians or catalogers want to do things manually, and yet for the semantic web to happen or other semantic web projects, it's manual to get it going. Somebody has to create the ontology. Somebody has to do the tagging. It's not necessarily happening automatically, but once that is put in place, the service or the interaction with the user is all based on automatic processes, but still it has to be done manually in the get-go.
And it will still be a need for catalogers and indexers and professional people to keep it going and maintain it. Absolutely. Because new concepts come up and things grow and expand. So even though once things get rolling, the sort of the day-to-day operational stuff probably will get taken care of, but we still need people to continue to sort of grow it. Is that it?
Yeah, I have there's a special issue of CCQ, Catalog and Classification Quarterly, that just came out, which will also be published as a book called Knitting the Semantic Web. So Ava, who I mentioned, and I, we have co-edited it. But in that book, I have a chapter which talks about library foundations as foundations for the semantic web. So I look at reference work, reference cataloging, collection development, and I forget what the fourth one is. So 4 foundations, and how, I mean, those are all activities that librarians are involved in day to day, and how those same activities are really needed to run the semantic web.
So 20 years from now, we'll still be training people. It'll just be some little different skill sets as they continue to evolve. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the skill set is the same. It's the environment that is changing. I have this comic on my door. You can't see it, but you can clip it at the end. It's a New Yorker cartoon. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a little cat going. The owner says to the cat, "Never think outside the box," because the cat goes outside the box. But it's the same skill set. It's the box is different. The cat can go anywhere.
Right.
Kind of thought.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The metadata course that you teach here. So, I mean, what are some of the kinds of skills that are students to take away from a course like that?
Well, There are so many metadata standards out there, and I, for the first part of the course, I like to find out what disciplines the students are interested in, or sort of first class or so,
Right.
and then I pick a few to really zoom in on and get some exposure. I have them work with Dublin Core, a little bit with obviously XML. And also the MARC format, because that is the metadata standard underlies all our bibliographic systems.
Right.
So having some exposure in creating metadata records with standards, and then being aware of a few standards in more detail, but also having an understanding of how large the metadata environment is. And then we cover issues or challenges that are happening. Let's see if I think about some of them. Well, metadata and security, interoperability of metadata.
Right.
I mean, we talk a lot about metadata interoperability, but what does it mean and how much, to get a grasp of the questions. We talk about metadata generation methods. What are the pros and cons of automatic versus manual, and the coupling of the two. We do talk about metadata and its role in Semantic Web. Automatic, well, I said that.
So in terms of the interoperability piece, I mean, do they actually learn to do crosswalks, or they sort of do some exercises to sort of do these mappings, or?
Well, I expose them to crosswalks, but then the class, I divide them into groups and let them pick.
Okay.
Because there's so many topics, and each each topic could be a class. I mean, you could have an entire semester on metadata interoperability. So we sort of divvy it up, and each group sort of synthesizes what some of the issues are. Everyone is responsible for learning the material, and we have discussions. I'm just thinking another issue that we covered that everyone is sort of hot about now is metadata quality. What is good quality? How can you measure quality? What are some of the indicators of quality? So, yeah.
Any thoughts about how we do that?
There are. I am particularly interested in automatic evaluation of metadata quality, and so I like to hear what people think about that. And there is some work going on there, but there are let's say frameworks or models that people have developed about what is quality metadata and what are some of the criteria. Diane Hillman at Cornell University is one person who's written quite a bit about that. So, I mean, you can get basic, is the metadata there or not there per field, I mean, that's something you can measure automatically. Does the subject metadata actually match the discipline ontology or not? You could automatically measure that. Consistency is a little, consistency is not always a measure of quality, because you can be consistently bad.
Right.
But consistency can help. Is the metadata in the right field? Like if somebody you can automatically see if somebody's following the W3C, was it date time standard format, year, month, date. If they put that in the author field, that's you can automatically detect that that's wrong. So is the metadata in the right field? That could be a measure. So there are people who've written and developed frameworks, and so we cover that, and we talk about how you could measure it, and where in the process of a metadata activity in an organization would it be important to exercise quality control? Should it be done at the time it's created? Should it be done by the person who's creating it? Should it be done by a machine first? When does the professional indexer come in? And so there are always some interesting discussions that take place in the class then.
I can see why so many people want to take the class and why it's so popular.
Well, thank you. I'm happy when we have a good number, and I do like having the mix of students. It's been interesting. They also do final projects, and they can do something on their own research-wise or explore an issue, where they can actually do team projects. And in certain instances, I've had 2 or 3 students get together, and I don't want to stereotype the library science and the information science student, but it has been interesting where maybe the library science student will write the schema and write the spec, and the information science student, or I should say another student, I shouldn't really divide them, might be more interested in actually creating the DTD and doing the XML, but they really have to work together. And so there's been some interesting projects. And always a few students who end up getting their master's papers out of it. You know, they'll dig more deeply in the metadata class. Perhaps they'll do their lit review, or they'll run a pilot or something, and then they'll want to continue on. So it's nice because they have a more solid master's paper because they benefited from one semester, which happens in a lot of our classes. I think in the advanced classes, I think that's nice when they don't just start their master's paper from scratch.
I found the same experience, and it is really quite a strength of this school that we have the students who have quite a range of skills and can work together to actually create very real kinds of solutions. So it's a good example.
It's true. Real solutions when they're involved actually when they take the question or the project and it's for some real project that they're actually working on in their job. That's really very exciting. So.
Maybe just one more kind of question or sort of area that I think is a lot of people talk about in the metadata area, and that's how necessary is it? I mean, given that Google and Live and Yahoo sort of just don't really use much metadata, and people say, well, that's all I need. In our school, of course, we have a different opinion that we realize that you really do need more. But I mean, how do we answer that?
Well, I think it's a really important question because we have these very intricate, elaborate standards, and we don't know. In a lot of cases, if it's really benefiting users, if people are searching on it, and maybe whatever we generate automatically is actually good enough, but we're still, when we do some kind of automatic stuff, we are still looking at some kind of metadata. So I argue that Google actually is about metadata because the URI or the URL is an identifier, a unique identifier, and so if you didn't have that metadata, Google wouldn't be able to do what it's doing. So,
cool.
but it's the true test is the metadata satisfying the function it was intended to satisfy. So is it supporting resource discovery? Is it helping with administration? Are people using it? And I think there's lots of research that needs to be done there.
Yeah, I guess even the hyperlinks, which are so crucial to retrieval, could be thought of as a kind of metadata because they describe the destination that.
I look at it. I mean, I'm sort of maybe radical by some people's standards. Actually, with the classic abstracting and indexing book. By Lancaster.
Lancaster, yeah.
I'm online here. Right. But in the beginning, Lancaster says that I should know better. I called catalogers metadata librarians, but now it's all okay. But it was one or two issues. He says some people who should know better. But I think it's all part of the same thing, and so
Well, certainly, as we were talking about earlier this morning, several of your former students are now have that very title in their professional careers, metadata librarians. So,
I was really pleased to find several SILS grads at good places too. So.
Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today, and good luck with your research and teaching in the future.
Thank you very much.